or thereabout. Tonight we're going to be looking at 4 principles of communication. This is a huge one. They're all great, but I want you to get this one because this is both not only for your own counseling but also your own personal life. So let's get started in a word of prayer. Callie, would you pray for us?
Heavenly Father, Lord God, thank you so much for giving us this time to learn your word, God. I just pray for Pastor Will as he teaches, and in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4. You come to a passage, Ephesians chapter 4, starting in about verse 20, we'll take into it, all the way to the end of the chapter, so 20 to 32. Good relationships are not built because of absence of problems. Please understand that. Good relationships are not built because of an absence of problems. If there are absence of problems in your marriage or in the counselees that you're talking to, they're probably not dealing with things. They're just letting it go, and not one side is just not dealing with it, or both sides. Nobody is immune from problems, and all are sinners, and it takes time to set the stage for conflict. And that all takes time. That is all it takes to set the stage. There it is. Okay. Take heart. Solid and lasting relationships can be built by those who know Christ as Savior and who learn to deal with problems biblically. So that is your desire. Your desire is to teach your counselees how to deal with the problems that will come up in their lives biblically. In Ephesians 4:22 to 24, Paul talks about how to change and grow. We'll look at that tonight by replacing old self-thoughts, and we'll define all of this and theologically go through this passage of Scripture with actions of biblical thoughts and habits, which God's way of handling conflicts. He illustrates it then in verses 25 to 32, and in examples of putting off and putting on, he gives 4 effective rules of communication. They are good for preventing and solving problems. And let me just say this about this passage of Scripture. 4 rules or 4 laws of biblical communication is something that we want to invest in, not just our hearts, but those that we counsel, but also the church that we're involved with. The better a church communicates, the better it's going to function. The better a church communicates, the more healthy it is. And one of the things that we have to struggle with constantly in the elder relationships and also the deacon relationship is how to communicate with one another. So we're going to look at the biblical approach of how do we get involved with biblical communication. So I want to take you to, starting in verse 17, basically Paul is here talking about the Gentile walk. And I want you to understand, this is just a quick one for you to get. In Ephesians chapter 1, 2, and 3, Paul gives out the doctrine. Ephesians has been noted as a miniature Romans, okay? So he does this in Romans, and he also does it in here. In Romans, you've got Paul dealing with doctrine in chapters 1 to 11. Chapters 12 to 16, Paul goes into application. Here you've got the same thing. Chapters 1 to 3, he gives out the doctrine. And then from the doctrine in chapters 4 to 6, he deals with application. So it's a biblical format for you to explain the truth and then apply it into the life, okay? So in chapters 1, 2, and 3 of Ephesians, he gives a sound rendition of what we as Christian and believers hold to as far as doctrine and the faith is concerned. Chapter 4, he totally changes, and then he starts to apply this into the life. And he talks about walking worthy and the spiritual gifts he's given to us. Then he talks about how the fact that we as believers are living in a church where the church is to do ministry. And this is huge as far as my dissertation and also what we want to accomplish at Hope Chapel. In verse 12, the church is given the responsibility to do the work of the ministry. Note that there in verse 12, chapter 4, verse 12, for the equipping of the saints. That's talking about the gifts that the Lord has given to each church, and there are 4 of them, and there are apostles, and there are prophets, and there are evangelists, and there are pastor teachers. He gives those to the church that they may equip the saints so that they can do the work of the ministry. That's what it says there. So that the edifying of the body of Christ. So, Paul is laying out how a church interacts with one another. Talks about in verse 13 how that we're all supposed to come to a knowledge of the Son of God. That is our goal in verse 13. In verse 14, that we shouldn't be like we were in the past, but we should in 15 speak the truth in love, and so grow up in all things unto Him. In any relationship, and you can put this on the side, and this is just extra, in any relationship, if you're not speaking the truth in love, you are not in harmony, you are not healthy, and you are not holy, and I'll add another one, you're not happy. Okay? All of those come from speaking the truth in love. Now, you've got some couples who like to just love and not speak the truth. You got other couples who want to speak the truth, but they're not doing it in love. You got to speak the truth in love. And that's what he's saying in verse 15. He says, when you do that, verse 16 happens. As you can tell, Ephesians is a favorite book of mine. And verse 16 deals with the fact of this is how it all works together. So the whole body is joined and knit together by what every joint supplies according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causing growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. Please get this even for Hope Chapel. Get this, get this, get this. God brings to our church the exact people that He wants in our church to affect the blessing and the health of the church. So He brings young, He brings older, He brings people from different backgrounds, from the north, from the west, from the south. He brings us all, but all of us are necessary in the church of God so that we might be able to help the church, as it says in verse 16, work together effectively, causing growth and edifying of one another. There is a reason why Karen is in our church. What Karen number 1? There is another reason why Karen number 2 is in our church. Okay? God just didn't say, well, go wherever you want. No, He's got them specifically going down. So the people who walked new to the church yesterday, whether they stay or not is God's call, takes the pressure off. They may come here and just have an angst. I don't feel very good. Got a stomach ache. So they don't want to come back. Stomach ache comes from God or is overseen by God. God doesn't want them here. He wants them down the road. See what I'm saying? Somebody else comes here and meets people that are just in a fantastic mood and everything is wonderful. They go, you know what? I really like that church. We invited a lady who was a waitress for us about 2 months ago. She said, I will come. Well, yesterday she showed up, didn't say a word to either one of us, but met Wendy out front, and I don't know her response. I wish I had known. As she walked by me, I was talking with somebody, and she just walked by with her mom. And you can't stop. So whether they come back, that's of the Lord.
They said they were going to come back.
Oh, they did.
sat
Okay.
right in front of us. Yeah.
Okay, so they saw you guys
we
over there.
talked to them.
So God has a way of working all of that out. Now, I don't know their future as far as Hope Chapel is concerned. But if they are to be here, they fall in 16, and we fall, therefore, in 16 with them. In other words, we look at them as a ministry. Okay? So, then he says this in verses 17 and 18 and 19. He said, this is the way the Gentiles used to work, how they lived their lives out. Don't live like them, walking in the futility of their mind. Verse 17, having their understanding darkened. Now, 17, 18, and 19 are the definition or the description of the counselees that you're going to have in the future. Okay? They're walking in the futility of their mind. Their understanding is darkened. They are alienated from the life of God, or what is really going on there. Now, if you're talking to Christians, they'll have some of that. They'll be influenced with that. But this is mainly for the unbeliever. He's talking about the unbeliever here, okay? So the unsaved people that come in for counseling, you know that's what you're dealing with in 17, 18, 19. And then he goes to 20, and 20 just changes everything. And look what he says in 20. But you have not so learned Christ. What are you talking about? Well, verse 19, who, being past feeling, have given themselves over to lewdness, to work all uncleanness with greediness, but you have not so learned Christ. Now, question. From your understanding, this is going to be a hard question. Who is he writing to?
Church.
He's writing to the church, specifically the Ephesians. Have they seen Christ? Now, hold on to this. Were the people that are in Ephesus seen Christ? No. Where did Jesus live? Jerusalem. That's a distance away. This is Asia Minor. Okay, so this is a distance away. But nobody says, you have not so learned Christ. If indeed you have heard him and been taught by him as the truth is in Jesus. You want to explain that, baby? See what he's saying? What he is assessing is who's the one that taught the Ephesians?
Paul.
Paul did. Who taught Paul?
Christ.
Christ. So what he is saying is you learned the doctrine from Christ. He's making that connection with Christ. And I can say the same thing to you. You have learned from Christ, his doctrine. Now, it might have come from me. It might have come from the Scriptures. But you have learned the doctrine of Jesus Christ. It's not the doctrine of Hope Chapel. It's not the doctrine of the Baptist or the Presbyterian. It's not that. It's what the Scripture says. You have learned Christ. So the New Testament, you have learned Christ. That gives you, again, your authority in dealing with this, okay? But you have not so learned Christ. If indeed, now note this, you have heard him and have been taught by him as the truth is in Jesus. Now this is important for you to note. In verse 22, that you, mine says that you put off. What does yours say? That you put off? Okay. Let me kind of put this out in your notes or in the margin of your Bible. That you have put off. That you have put off. Okay, it's a middle verb, which means it's already occurred. That you have put off. Second class middle verb. Okay. That you have put off concerning your former conduct. Okay, what are you talking about? The old man, which grows corrupt according to the deceitful. So what's he talking about here? He's talking about the fact that when you were an unbeliever, you had the old man and you have flesh, right? When you got to be saved, what happened to the old man?
He died.
He died. He was crucified. He turned into the new man, all right? So now you've got the new man within, and you're still housed in what we call the flesh. Paul deals with the flesh. So what Paul is here is saying is that you have put off, concerning your former conduct, the old man, which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lust, where? In the flesh, right? And be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that's counseling. And right in verse 23, right beside it, biblical counseling or biblical soul care. Either way, be renewed in the spirit of mind. That is your focus when you're counseling. You want to help the person renew his mind. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you struggle through having tapes that were either made by somebody that didn't like you or somebody in the past, even one that said that they loved you, but they gave you tapes about what you could and couldn't do and how you were not as good as somebody else? How many of you have got tapes like that? I got tapes like that, okay? What your goal is to do is to take verse 23 and erase those tapes and put on there what God says about the person. Does that make sense? That's what your job is. And if we as counselors can get other people to have their mind renewed according to what Christ says, then you've got a real disciple of Jesus Christ. Make sense? So my goal on Sunday mornings when I preach is to retool the thinking of the people I'm talking to. So people will come out and say, man, I really didn't get that, or that really, really made sense, or wow, that's really, really, and all of that is God working in the heart, but it's the renewing of their mind. Now look at verse 24, and that you put on the new man, you can also say there, and that you have put on the new man, which was created according to God in true righteousness and holiness. Now That's a major theological sermon by itself. The new man that you've put on within is created by God in righteousness and true holiness. And I'd love to get digging into this, and we may be able to do this a little bit later. But that coincides with Romans chapter 7, which is a very interesting verse. In fact, I'm going to have Mo, could you look up Romans 7:20 and then read it, and then we won't say anything. We'll just go on, because you got to interpret that verse on your own. Romans 7:20. What does it say?
Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me.
Did you get that? One more time, sis.
Now, if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me.
In fact, add to that verse 16. What does 16 say?
Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree with the law that it is good.
One more? 17.
So now it is no longer I who do it, but sin that dwells within me.
Now, is that intriguing to you? That's very intriguing to me, theologically. Because Paul's just saying the stuff that I do is no longer I who do it, but sin. It's very interesting. That correlates with verse 24. Okay? Now, having said all that and brought all that about, now Paul launches and goes from verses 25 to 32. He launches into how do we communicate with one another given the fact of verses 22 to 24. Okay? So then he starts in verse 25. So let's read verse 25. Larry, real loud, verse 25.
Therefore, putting away lying, let each one of you speak truth with his neighbor, for we are neighbors of one another, members of one another.
Okay, so tell me what he just, this is for everybody. What did he just say there? This is application. So what did Paul just say? Karen, what did Paul just say?
Don't lie.
Don't lie. Kind of pretty simple, right? Therefore, put away lying. Don't lie. Instead of lying, what should you do? Speak truth. All right? And then he gives a reason why we're supposed to speak truth. And what's the reason?
We're part of the body.
Yeah, we're members of one another, right? This is a very important thing. People who lie are disassociated with the people with whom they're lying to. Please get this. Please get this. You never build a relationship on lies. The moment a person lies, he begins to destroy the relationship. I told my kids when I was growing up, one of the parenting things I said, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. Just don't lie to me. Because the moment you lie to me, you're telling me you don't want a relationship with me. So do not lie. Now, sometimes they told me what I didn't want to hear, but it was the truth. It was the truth, all right? I just said, don't lie to me. Please note that with one another. And everybody in this body, you have to always tell the truth, because you don't build relationships with other people on truth. The moment you start to deceive, you're starting to destroy relationships. So you have drug addicts who always lie. Guess what? They have good relationships. Do you go to the drug addict and say, hey, tell me, you got great relationships, so tell me how you do that? Oh, I just plug it up and man, it's just fantastic. No, they got lousy relationships. Why? Because they're lying all the time. So always remember that. If you got problems with an individual or this person is having a problem with you or whatever, you check the thing, are they telling me the truth? Yes?
Do you believe in the description of a pathological liar?
Do I believe?
Hearing what you're saying, a pathological liar lies about everything, basically.
Right.
And do they know that they're lying? Are they aware that they're lying? I don't know. I'm asking.
Let me throw that out to everybody. Go ahead and answer. What do you think?
I think at some point they were, and then at another point, they're desensitized to the fact that they're truly lying, and it's just habit. I mean, from somebody to that degree.
Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think a person can get to the point where they don't even think that they're lying?
Yes.
They believe what they're saying.
Yes.
You weren't talking about Bill Clinton, were you?
I've used that in the past, simply because he was such an efficient and effective That's sad to say that way. But he really believed what he said. And the agony of that means he is totally deceived.
There were courses that, and I think they're given to politicians, that basically teach them how to come across to make people believe them, and part of that is telling a lie with some skills, okay, that make them better liars. And
In
that's
fact,
what our
today,
country's
it's a
about.
rare thing if you've got a politician who doesn't know how to lie very well. Person is just straight up, you're sitting there going, you know? And I'll be honest with you, you know, we can go back and forth and talk all about the politics that happen here. One of the things that I think the American people was so tired of is all the lies that went on, whether it was of him. Of course, he did say one of the problems, he was quoted as saying, one of the problems this person has is that they haven't learned how to lie yet. Okay. I think the American people are just so fed up with people in both parties just saying whatever is necessary to say in order to get out of a circumstance, or they're just lying constantly. And one of the things that I think was refreshing about Trump was, whether you liked it or not, he was going to just say it.
Mhm.
And he went, yeah, that's how I feel. And whether he was right on the issue or wrong on the issue doesn't matter. It was just that he was saying what we would say he was saying the truth. Now, does he lie? Sure he does. Sure he does. I'm not saying that. What I am trying to say is that I think that there's a yearning in the heart of individuals for people just to not lie to them. Just don't lie to me. You know, I really don't want, I mean, and I don't know about you, but I listen to news and I can hear them. It's just obvious. You're lying to me. And something will go, you're lying to me. And at that point, you lose all credibility. So the first aspect of the four principles, the first principle here is that be honest. Be honest. Now you'll have to check the couples that you counsel, or the woman or the man, and just check them at times when they say lies to themselves. I can't do that. Wait a second. What did God tell you? Did God tell you that you can't do that? No. God says what? I can do all things that I'm supposed to do through Christ, right? Somebody says, well, nobody loves me. That's not a true statement. But if you keep telling yourself that, they're going to think that, right? Well, nobody does right. Well, that's, Jesus did, right? So we have to always check what a person says when they're not saying the right thing. So the first point in verse 25 is, first principle of communication is simply be honest. We must put off speaking lies, okay? And what did he say with that? That's a Greek imperative. It's a command. It's honesty is more than just not lying, okay? Honesty is more than just not lying. Because you can deceive by not telling all the truth. Now here's a big thing. If you have a friend of yours and they come to a conclusion that you know is improper, for you to be silent about that, you're allowing for them to be deceived. And you've got to ask yourself the question, do I want my friend to be deceived? See?
If you're dealing with a non-believer, though, suppose you're dealing with a non-believer you've got a relationship with, that goes back 5 or 10 years, and they say, hey, my girlfriend and I moving in together. It's flat out wrong. But do you tell them that it's wrong from a biblical standpoint, or do you have to go back now and say, okay, I know he's not saved if he's doing this,
Right.
and I've got to go back to evangelize him rather than point the finger at him and say, hey, you're doing wrong.
Yeah. And they're not going to understand biblical principles.
They won't.
I was just talking to Maria this last week, and she said that our kids were telling us that the people that are in the secular world, as far as living in a pure life, we're talking 95% of, and then she laid this one on. She said, yeah, but in the Christian school, because my other daughter goes to North Greenville University, and said, in the Christian school, it's close to that. I, excuse me? And they said, yeah, it's just that way. Well, a person like that is lying to themselves. This is a tough one to hear, but it's true. Every time you sin, it involves a lie. What do I mean? Well, you know that God told you not to do that. In order for you to do that, you're lying to yourself that this thing is going to satisfy me, even though God said it's not going to satisfy me. So lying is a huge thing, and that's why they call the devil, one of his titles is what? He's the father of lies. So you have to be careful with, do I put this, this standard on a person who doesn't know that biblical truth, or doesn't have the ability even not to lie, because he doesn't have the Spirit of God or the Spirit of truth within him.
Matt Williams tells a story once, he told it in the pulpit where he had a visiting couple that came in. They were unchurched, they were invited, unchurched, they came in, liked what they were hearing, and they were living together, and they went in and told them that they wanted to get married. So he asked them both their address, identical addresses. Well, you can't be doing that. And it was like foreign to them because they had never heard that they should not.
Right.
They should not live together. I mean, these were people who were not churched, okay? I mean, obviously not believers, but they were not churched.
Well, you get
So
people.
the unchurched population out there, a lot of them are ignorant about.
But it's
what
not
they
even
should be
more.
doing, but you would think the conscience at least would.
Well, it's not. You've got people on that side that have said, no, you need to know whether you're sexually compatible.
Yeah.
And they make a case for that
And that makes perfectly good sense when
when you don't know Jesus.
yeah.
Are you kidding me? Of course. This is a major aspect of our marriage. You're not going to try it to see if it's compatible. So there's some aspects there where we have to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But there's a point where they will know the difference, and they will see, wow, that the life that you're living is different from mine, and you seem to be happier than me, and that's where they'll sense that. So the first thing is be honest. We must put off the speaking lies. It's a command, just don't lie, okay? That seems simple, but then let's go to the next one where it says, come on, we must put on speaking the truth. We must put on speaking the truth. So it's not just don't lie, it's speak the truth. Problems can't be solved. Problems can't be solved unless they are expressed. People cannot read our mind. And this is an important one. Well, that's all. See, let me go back to there. Do we have that one down there? Well, it's not there. I haven't gotten done stuff under B1 and 2. But you got there in your notes, problems cannot be solved unless they are expressed. People cannot read our mind. See 1 Corinthians 2:11? I want you to circle that and write underneath it, do not judge motives of the heart. Do not judge motives of the heart. This is one that was really hard for me because I figured when I was young I could figure out what everybody did, why they did it. And once I assign a motive to it, then I can condemn them. See what I'm saying? You can't judge each other's motives. You did this because you don't know that unless I told you that. Make sense? So that's a big one just to hold on to. Just remember that when somebody starts saying stuff, well, you did this because, and you know what you meant by that. You don't know that unless they tell them. Because the only person who knows the thoughts of a man's heart is himself and, of course, God. All right. Next one, we must deny dishonesty. Examples of dishonesty, outright deceit, or conflicts between body language and tone. That's why I do not like to counsel without looking at the people. Oh yeah, I love you. That comes across one way, verbally, and it comes across a totally different way, right? Yes, I love you. Okay? You got to see the frustration. You guys remember that there was a book that was written about body language and how a person says what they're saying with their body, also with their crossing of the arms and crossing of the legs, okay? Conflict between body language and tones and the content of what we say. The other one there is disguising the message, innuendos, white lies or half-truth. All of that is dishonesty, okay? And the better you are, the struggle with telling lies and dishonesty is that you got to remember what you said. when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember nothing. You can be bad memory. You just always tell the truth. Now I want you, tell me the story of Genesis chapter 12 and Genesis chapter 20. I think I've got this down here. Examples of Abraham, Sarah, Pharaoh, and Abimelech, okay? In Genesis chapter 12, where is Abraham? He's down in Egypt, and he's talking to Pharaoh, and what happens? By the way, how old is she at this point? She's not close. She's not 90 that much. She's around 78 or 80, okay? And so he goes down to Egypt, and he says what to Sarah?
Tell Pharaoh you're my sister.
He says, tell everybody that you're my sister, not my wife. Now, was he his sister? Yeah, same dad, different wife, right? So they were half brother and sister, okay? So it's really, you didn't know that?
I forgot that.
Yeah. That's why when he said it, you're my half sister, okay, that was, so.
But the marriage relationship was a greater relationship than the...
And he didn't happen to mention that, right?
Yeah.
So he gets down there and he says, okay, if they see how beautiful you are, they're going to kill me and take you to Pharaoh. Now, do you want to go to Pharaoh? No. So don't tell anybody that you're my wife. Tell him you're sister. So he ends up in Pharaoh's house anyway. And Abraham lied. Okay? He not only did it to Abraham, not only did it to Pharaoh, he did it to Abimelech in chapter 20. Same thing, same deal. Okay? Who does it also? Isaac, his son, lies about Rebekah. It says the same deal.
That was dumb. You know someone's going to date your sister because she's not taken.
But
He
back
was-
then, I think he would have.
That was okay.
He would have rather have given up his wife to Pharaoh at
Than
that
be
point,
killed.
rather than be killed because of,
Yeah.
if
Okay,
they were married. Then
let's go back to Genesis
it's
chapter
a death
12.
sentence.
Yes.
Okay, in Genesis chapter 12, verse 10, there's a famine in the land. Abraham went down to Egypt and dwelt there, for the famine was severe in the land. It came to pass when he was close to Egypt, he said to Sarah his wife, indeed, I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen when the Egyptians see that they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, and they will let you live. But please say that you are my sister, that it may be well with me because of your sake, and that I will live because of you. So when they got down there, the Egyptians saw that she was beautiful. The princes of Pharaoh also saw that her and commended her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well. And by the way, this is where he got wealth. For her sake, he had sheep and oxen and male donkeys and female servants. By the way, who came along with that one? Just an interesting note. Down in 16, it says male donkeys and male and female servants. Female donkeys. Puts them right in the middle between all of the animals. But who do we know or hear later that was a servant that was in Abraham's life, but she was an Egyptian servant? What? Hagar. So out of a lie comes Hagar.
Hmm.
So Hagar is now in his, and you know all the mess that came from that. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh for his house, great plagues because of Sarah. And Pharaoh said to Abraham, what in the world have you done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? So somehow he found out. Why did you say that she was my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Now therefore here, take her. She's yours. Go your way. And Pharaoh commanded his servants concerning him that they should send him away. So you see that, but look in chapter 20. You think he learned his lesson? Abraham journeyed from there to the south and dwelt in Kadesh. And Abraham said to Sarah his wife, she is my sister. Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. God came to Abimelech in a dream and said, you're a dead man. Oh, wow. You're a dead man, dude. Because this woman whom you've taken, she's another man's wife. And Abimelech said, Lord, you know, I did not know. Can you slay a righteous man? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And she even herself said, he is my brother. In the integrity of my heart, innocent of my hands, I've done this. The Lord said in the dream, yes, I know that you did this. This interplay is just phenomenal with God. I mean, he comes up, what's the first things out of God's mouth to him? You're dead, man. Bro, why didn't he come up and say, listen, I know in the integrity of your heart that you did it. He doesn't do it. He's just, you're dead,
He
man.
knows how to communicate to a man. You get the bottom line right away.
Boom, right there, not telling any story. Woo,
The
you're
fluff-
dead,
the
man.
fluff comes
What?
after, you know?
He definitely has his attention. You know?
Get to the point. I just want the baby, not the apple. But you notice, though, go back to Genesis 12, in that account, you say, you know, he didn't learn his lesson, but what were his consequences? He got sheep, he got slaves, he got this, he got that, he got donkeys, he
Now
got everything. and he
that's
got
a great
booted out.
answer.
Pharaoh was the one who ended up with the difficulty because of all the plagues that hit Egypt because of Abram's line.
And that which came as a blessing became a curse with Hagar. So something that we may think, wow, God's blessing, but comes in a little bit later, boy, man, I shouldn't have had that. Okay.
But he hasn't had that yet, so he's still doing it with Abimelech.
Right. Verse 9, Abimelech says to Abraham, how have I offended you, that you brought on me and my kingdom such a great sin? You have done deeds to me. And Abraham says, very interesting thing. What did you, and Abimelech said to Abraham, what did you have in view that you had done this thing? And Abraham said, now note this is reasoning. Verse 11, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place and they will kill me on account of my wife. So who he was trusting in? Not God. You know, he was trusting in his own wisdom. He said, well, those guys don't appreciate the fear of God. So then he goes on from there, and she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, in verse 12, and she has become my wife. Okay. So verse 14, and Abimelech took sheep and oxen and female servants and gave them to, and restored Sarah his wife and said, see, my land is before you, dwell wherever you want. Verse 17, and Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife. Wow. So you got a setting there where you got sin going on because he didn't tell the full truth. Okay? So be careful about partial truths. Careful about partial truths. Okay. Questions? All right. So what's the first law of communication? Be honest, be honest, be honest, be honest. Okay. Next law.
Now, do you go
Principle.
over this with the counselees?
Oh, yeah, I
when they
teach
sit
this
down
lesson.
The first meeting, you sit down?
Well, not first. It depends on when you need it. All the stuff that I'm giving you, I teach in my counseling sessions. When I got somebody that I'm dealing with, and as far as they're struggling with telling the truth or whatever, we go right through this stuff. And I give them the sheets of paper, and I make them fill them out, and I'm teaching. So what I'm giving you is what I teach them. Okay. Second one is keep current, verse 26 and 27. Delane, can you read verses 26 and 27 of Ephesians chapter 4 that you can find very quickly? She was still in Genesis. Okay. Okay, but before you go there, reread verse 25 and then hit 26 and 27.
Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another.
Okay, so there's the first law. Now we go to the second one.
Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil.
Okay. So he said, now we're dealing with anger. Okay, so how is that a communicational type of thing? Well, the principle that he's dealing with here is be angry. By the way, is it a sin to be angry? No. Because it says right here, be angry and don't sin. So you can have sinful anger and you can have righteous indignation. That's how I kind of make the differentiation, okay? When something is outright sin and a dishonor to God, you ought to get mad about it, okay? And we have to be honest with what is right and wrong. We have a tendency to overlook the sins of a person because we like them. And if we don't like them, we're going to lay out every single problem they've ever had. You can see that in politics. Okay? It's very easy to talk about all of the problems of Clinton. Okay? Yeah, but let's look at all of the problems of Trump. Let's look at all the problems of Reagan. I mean, they're just down the road. So you got to be careful. We have a standard, and the standard is not a person. The standard is Jesus Christ. He's not a human person that we're dealing with. Trump is not the standard. So, but be angry and do not sin. Don't let this. There's the phrase there. Do not let the sun go down upon your wrath, nor give place to the devil. Now, so the second law of communication is keep current. Get angry at sin. Get angry at sin, but don't sin. Do not let your wrath, your exacerbation, your fury, your indignation last until the sun goes down. And don't be checking when the sun goes down to know how long you can be angry about something, okay? It's not what Paul is trying to say. Leave no such room or foothold for the devil. Give no opportunity. Brothers and sisters, I really believe there's two truths that you can pull from here besides what we're looking at. And one of them is this. Bitterness and anger, sinful anger, give a placehold to the devil. When you find people that you're counseling with and they've got a bitterness in them, they've got a place where the devil is at work. So always note that. Always get that. You're giving an opportunity for the evil one to multiply problems, okay? Lying in verse 25 is a sin. Anger in verse 26 may not be. Do you think Jesus was angry when he cleansed the temple? Oh, yeah. Anybody that can separate a Jew from his money? Gotta be angry. Gotta be angry about that, okay? I have friends of mine that are Jewish. They just have, I think, the only thing I can, it is my son lives with a Jew in his house, and the guy is just a marvel when it comes to money. The kid is 26 and he's already got $250,000 in investments. And he's checking all the time, and my son is like, you know, and he always wants to talk to him about it, and he goes, man, that doesn't excite me. That's not a big time for me, okay? But I do believe God has blessed the human race with the gifts and the abilities of the Jewish nation. I believe that. I see that. There is no explanation. There is no explanation except for God for that small nation to survive among a sea of those who hate them. All the wars that they have fought, there is no explanation. It's the hand of God.
Have you seen the list of Nobel Peace Prize winners
No.
from Israel compared to the Arab nations? Israel, little tiny Israel, a list this long, the Arabs, 10 times the population, this long. It's
How many
incredible. The
How many are in
inventors of,
Israel right now?
the salt vaccine.
Somebody look that up in your Google. How many Israelites live in Israel right now? Probably 10 million or something like that.
I think it's a little over 6 million.
Okay, check that out.
Some of those are Arabs. I think they allow up to 15% Arabic descent.
So, when Jesus cleansed the temple, he was angry. Anger is energy, motion. Energy and motion to be used to solve problems. So you use anger to solve problems. You use anger to solve problems.
Explain
Yeah.
that. I get the anger, I don't have the problem solving.
Okay. You become angry about a righteous thing. You got all of this pent up this emotion and energy that's inside it.
Abortion.
So what causes those people to go out and do protests? They're angry about it. So you use the anger of a righteous situation. Now, if it's unrighteous, you can't use it. But if it's a righteous anger about something, for instance, when I counsel individuals who have been unfaithful to their mate, and their mate is just flat out angry. Is that wrong? Can be. Oftentimes can move very quickly into it. but not necessarily is wrong. I mean, when you talk to a woman or a man who they feel like they have been defrauded, and they're mad about it. I'm dealing with a guy right now in that setting, and he is just ticked off. I get that. There comes a point where that can move into sinful anger. So what do you do with a guy like that? So you use this emotion. Use this emotion to seek the Lord in this. Use this emotion. Tell God you're angry. And that's why you have the openness of prayer. Find out what the Scripture says about, was this wrong? Well, of course it was wrong. Well, figure out what are all the details of this. Why did your wife or your husband do that? Tell me, try to figure that out. So you're asking questions for them. Because they have one. She did it. He did it. It's over. It's done. Okay. Why? Did you? And this is a tough one. I've had to ask this. Were you living in such a way? And oftentimes this happens with the guys as far as with the girls. Were you living in such a way where she felt lonely? Well, it doesn't matter. I know that. But if we're going to grow with this, if we're going to benefit from this, you've got to ask yourself some tough questions. Why did she do what she did? Because on the wedding day, she was not planning on doing that. Something happened. You see what I'm saying? I can always crack out the sin. Oh, yeah, adultery. She's done. It's over. Does God give him the right to divorce her? Sure he does. God says that. But the question I have to ask for you is, can you divorce and be sinful? Can you legitimately, biblically divorce somebody in a sinful way? For instance, let's say I'm talking to a guy, his wife has been unfaithful, and he wants to get out of the marriage. He just wants to get out. And boy, he mistreats her and is unkind to her, and it's all in a supposed, but he is just beating her up. She's weeping, and she's saying, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? And you hear the phrase from him, I don't know, I'll think about it. Well, that's wrong in and of itself. But can he divorce her with the wrong attitude? Can he divorce her with a sinful attitude? I'm going to get you, man. I am going to destroy. You won't get a dime. Wow. See what I'm saying? So you can actually, at times, do the biblical allowance, but you're doing it with the evil intent. Okay. Let's turn the air conditioning on. Okay. So, Aaron, if you can do that. It's so funny when I ask that question in church. How many are hot? All the women raise their hands. How many are just right? All the guys raise their hands. Now what do? You've just created, you can't turn on the air and say, tough guys. Okay. So anger is energy, emotion to be solved, is used to solve problems. Anger is sinful when it is used to attack. Can somebody look up Proverbs 25:28? And blow up or clam up. And all of us deal with this in a different way. And I didn't know the totality of my sinful depravity until I got married. And Maria laughed at that. Okay. I didn't know it's amazing. You know what really causes anger is love. Yeah, love of self, but the aspect of I love you. Why did you do this to me? See, if I don't care about you, see ya. See what I'm saying? If I really, really care and I really, really love you, that provides a foundation. Or I got to be careful. So, who's got Proverbs 25:28? Somebody read it.
Whoever has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls.
Okay. So when anger comes, I gotta have my city walls. He says, why? Because you can move in and out. And you see people that are giving themselves over to anger, it's just wide open. So people will blow up or they'll clam up. But the self is the center of everything. Failure to solve the problem daily means we give place or foothold to the devil by opening a way to disappointment, resentment, bitterness, and hatred, distorting the subsequent problems. You got people who are bringing up the historical issues. You got anger there. So anger is a big deal. So you gotta. So you in a communicating situation, you got to make sure you're concurrent. You talk to people in their counseling, and they can. Oh my word, they have got it memorized. They've gone it over so many times. And you say, well, what's the problem? Well, when 15 years ago, I mean, literally 15 years ago, he came home on Friday afternoon, and he had been ticked off, and he came in here, and he grabbed me, and he bruised me. And he was going, what? Yeah, you bruised me. And it was like, what in the world? 15. She knows the exact time. She's been going over on her head. See? Was it wrong what he did? Yeah. Did you apologize for it? I don't even remember it. Okay. It's now brought up. Deal with it. Now what do we say to her? Now we have to teach, and there's lessons that I've just given you out about forgiveness. We'll have to teach them about forgiveness, okay? Opening the way to disappointment, resentment, bitterness, and hatred, okay? So the next one here. Stop sinful manipulation during communication. Cutting off communication by crying. I've seen that with the ladies. They're very, very good with that. I've been brutal, probably, with that in a counseling situation. I remember a lady that really could use that, and I remember looking at her and saying, okay, we'll wait until you're done crying. And she said, what? I said, well, wait. There's no sense in this. You're emotionally, weak right now. Okay, better. And in 15 minutes, she was hotter, because emotion's going to come out. If she thinks that she can manipulate at times, she'll cry. And then you get this from the guy. So they're sitting facing me, and she starts to cry, and he's like, well, he hardened himself to it. All right. So.
Are you saying if they cry, it's always manipulative?
Oh no. But you can tell, by the way, when it's manipulative.
There's a pattern.
Because you're confronting, to me, what I've seen in couple counseling with you is when you start kind of finding the common thread of truth, and you're getting close to what her issue is. And her defense is to deflect it. You hurt my
Don't go
feelings.
there.
Yeah.
Don't go there. That's what they're saying. Don't go there. Don't deal with it. My tears put
They
up.
don't cry when you're talking to the dude about what he's doing wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or it's when you start to kind of zero in, hone in.
And then one of the struggles that you have with that is you love the people that you're counseling, but you have to be firm with them. And then they judge your motive. Oh, you like him more than you're a man, so you like. That had nothing to do with anything. It's just that I'm going to be honest with him. I'm going to be honest with you.
So why you always give homework to the man first, so that they can't use that as a defense?
Usually with the men, I tell the men up front. I say to the men, I put the onus of the marital struggle on the man's shoulder. And they're kind of like, what? I said, because God tells you to love. Tells her to respect. But a woman is made of response. And have you loved her as Christ loved the church? So I put this onus on you. You're to be an expert at how to love her. And of course, then the guy goes, well, always getting the raw deal. That type of response. So there's an aspect where you look at that and you try to deal with it as straightforwardly as you can. But that's why you do give him homework, because if the guy is not going to do it, he will eventually bag out. And then you're dealing with you're talking to the lady, how do you live a godly life even though your husband's not going to follow it? And that's the tough part, because she has to.
But as you're listening to both sides of the story, you generally start with the guy first?
Mm-hmm. I usually go with the guy.
Yeah.
And the reason is you start with the lady, you got weeks you're going to be listening, okay? You talk
Well,
with
not
a guy.
just that, but then they've got the defense. Well, you're letting him get away scot-free, and you're picking on poor little.
Well, you ask the guy what the problem is. He's got it all zeroed down in about 30 seconds. He can tell anybody and everybody, and he does it at the bars, and he tells it to his friends. He tells it, oh, here's the problem. And so you let him give his statements, and so you write it all down, ask questions, and depending upon how she responds to it and how she interacts with it. Tell the whole story. And, he feels like I did. But it's all in about 30 seconds. No, tell the whole, it was on Friday and it was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you had just come home from work and you were frustrated and you were mad. You hadn't taken a shower for 2 weeks because you were mad about it. And you came in the front door. You didn't come in the back door like you usually. You came in the front door and he's just like, how do you remember all that? I just remember I came home,
It's a gift.
But it's how a woman is wired. And if a man doesn't get that, I'm learning a ton, even, been married now 30 years or close to 30 years. And I know how much I don't know as far as a woman is concerned. And I learn it honestly. I know my wife is sitting here, but I learn a lot of it by my 3 girls. Because I'm not just dealing with a wife who has been commissioned by God to respect me, okay? I'm dealing with 3 little girls who've now grown up to be wonderful ladies, but they don't have that commitment. They never walked an aisle with their dad. God put them in the family. I mean, it wasn't their choice. I got this dad because God said so. Okay, they don't have that commitment level. So I've learned I got 3 really great girls, but I'm stupid as a dad of girls. It's the funniest thing in the world because I never knew what it was like to have 3 girls until the boys left. As long as the boys were there, hey, we rule the place. We're dudes, all right? We got this together. And guys are like, yeah, and the girls are all quiet. They leave and I got 4 wolves. You alone, dude. All by yourself, And I have learned when the 3 girls are at home, I keep my mouth shut. Because they'll shut it for me if I don't. But they're a part, God created such a wonderful, wonderful thing and when he created a woman.
Going back to what he said about that the guys can do it in 30 seconds, women have all the details. Sometimes those details are important. Like, it was when you came home from work and, the conflict, and you need to figure out, well, maybe he had a bad day at work, he came in with an attitude. So those kind of details are important. But it's like, okay, let's start with the bottom line and go back to the details. And that's why you start with the guy. When you start with the woman, you're going to start from, I was born in, I literally had that in the calendar.
I remember when I was born. Oh, no.
Not that far back, okay?
My great-grandmother.
But so it is important, and women are wired differently like that, and the details are important, but as a counselor, get the fact, what is the crucial problem, how does he perceive it, okay, go back give me some of the details, and.
See, and guys and girls will counsel differently, okay? So when you guys counsel, because you will be counseling in the future, you'll sit in front of them, and you'll just, basically what you'll want to say is, give me the facts, okay? That doesn't register with the girl, okay? So you talk to the guy, and you say to the guy, okay, tell me the story. And and you're writing things down. Now, and you have to plot, okay, so how did that happen on Friday? I mean, what happened? Well, let me see. I was working at, what was the name of that business? It was Perdine. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's right. She's got them all. She's just, and she's got it all going. And so you're trying to get the list down, all right? And the guy is just giving you the basic facts, but you can ask the questions and get more, and you get that, okay? But then when you go to the girl, she's going to bring in all the flavor. She's going to bring in all the atmosphere. And she's going to tell you all about, and you need those facts, okay? But there's an aspect where when you really come to counsel, oftentimes, unless the woman is a manipulator, and she has moved into the deceitful mode, what she says is really coming out of her heart. And then what you struggle with is that you see how the man deals with it. It's like, he's brutal. He's not, I mean, this matters to her. And it's oftentimes that the man has already been hurt or whatever, and so he backs away because he's trying to, I do not know how to deal with this. I do not know. So he backs away and stops dealing with everything. Well, that says to her, he doesn't love me anymore. And so she comes forward to try to get more, and he's just going, and he keeps backing up, and she keeps coming forward, okay, and you can see it in the counseling session and how they're interacting with one another. Oftentimes the guy is sitting back in his haunches in the seat, and the woman is leaning forward. She's getting and she wants counseling. This is important. The guy's trying to get over the fact that he is unloading all of the stuff he doesn't want anybody to know to a person he does not know. It's a complete stranger. And so he's still trying to get over that, and she's ready to spill the guts about everything and will tell the most egregious facts about intimacy and everything okay, I don't need to know everything. Why? I don't need to know that. And he is, red-faced, and it's over for him. He's just, I'm not doing that again. I am not going to go in a place where she can say whatever she wants to say. So as a counselor, you're trying to say, and so you have to say, hey, enough. I don't need any more of that. That's not proper for me to know. Okay. So the guy's response, in his head, he's going, oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't wrong in feeling this way. And she's going, well, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know things that I deem important in the dealing with what we're. So she's now questioning me. That draws him back in. Oh, okay, she's questioning him like she questions me. See what I'm saying? You can't ever get in a situation where you're like favored by one over the other. You're trying to work both of them. So, but it's a delight, and I can just tell you, you get them on the first commitment of being honest, and it really starts to change things. I'm learning right now how to be honest, but be honest in the right way, because in my relationship, I really believe what I'm saying. I don't say things I don't believe, but the struggle is I learn also that I can feel that very much right now, and in 2 days, my kids have learned I may feel a different way, and so they know to ask Dad a second time, well, how do you feel about that? And I've got to learn how, if I'm thinking about it, they need to know I can't come that strong on it. This is personal stuff that Marie and I are learning. I should say I'm learning, because I feel passionately about the things that I feel about, but I got to be careful because other influences, other facts come in the next 2 or 3 days, and I changed that. Or I need to learn how to say, I think that would be good. I like that, but we'll see. So we're all growing in this thing. Nobody's got it all going down, so that's anyway. All right, let's go on.
Question. On B, where you say stop sinful manipulation during communication, you're talking about during the actual appointment in your office. You're not talking about communication at home or anything else.
No, I would.
You're talking about the tears, the emotions, where.
But I would say,
you're trying to manipulate the other one.
if it's going on in your counseling service, it's going in at home.
Right. But we talked about it before. One of the ways that a wife can manipulate a husband is through sex. And the first day on counseling session, you're not going to go in and tell her, hey, you got to stop withholding yourself.
Oh yeah, that's when you're dealing with stuff like that, what you're dealing with is stuff that it's gonna take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, maybe 2 months to get to.
Right.
And that's by the way, that is a very good point in this situation. You've got to learn which problem you're going to deal with first, because they will give you 15, and you got to learn, okay, which one is the most important one. Okay. And we'll get to that in later sessions, but it's true. Each other person that is standing in front of you have problems that they need to work through. Okay. All right. So it says there, I think I've given these in your notes. Bottom line is, bottom lining. All I have to say is, Well, that's not true, number one, because you will be saying other things. Okay, but number two, you can't say that everything matters with this point. And it's like it's like the judge comes down with the hammer. That's it. Well, no, that's not how relationships are. Okay? So don't, if you don't do this, I'm out of here. The D word. And we could get divorced. So all that is manipulation type stuff. Okay? I remember Counsel Lee, I've written in my notes, I remember Counsel Lee who would stand up and walk around when he was angry. I think I told you about that, but he would get mad and just start walking around. He was telling me and her exactly, that he's in control by doing that. So you gotta stop that type of stuff. Hey, let's sit down, let's talk through it, all right? 2, deal with problems daily. Tomorrow will have problems of its own. You can find that in Matthew 6:34, all right? Next one here is 6 questions to ask before bringing up a sticky problem, okay? 6 questions to ask. Now this is for them to abide by when they're at home, okay? 6 questions, and here they are. Do I have them there? Do I have the facts right? Oh, I'm lousy with that. Okay, do I have the facts right? Proverbs 18:13 deal with the fact that the first guy that comes sounds really, really good until you hear the second guy. Okay, so do I have the facts right? The next one is, should love hide it? Is it sinful? Is it hindering growth? 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 8 deal with that aspect of love covers a multitude of sins. Okay? By the way, should you ever overlook sin? When it's forgiven. When it's directed and when it's forgiven. You don't just overlook sin. If it's sin, you got to deal with it.
But if you get your shopping list of 15 items, you take a look at it, maybe number 15, you don't overlook it, but you just
You
decide
say
not
we will get
address
to
it then.
You say we will get to it. And you've dealt with it. You say we will get to every single one of these that we work through. But you never allow for a person just to think, well, I'm really showing love because I'm covering a multitude of sin. You could put in that phrase, love covers a multitude of confessed and forgiven sin. In other words, I don't bring it up again. Third thing here is my attitude right. Proverbs 15:23. See if I'll get to that. 15:23 says, idle chatter leads only to poverty. Okay? Is my attitude right? 15:23. A word spoken in due season, how good it is. Is my attitude right in dealing with it? And oftentimes, my attitude is not right because I can get irritated in a discussion, and then I can turn it into an argument. And that's what you don't want. So you got to always be gentle. Okay, number 4, is my timing right? Is my timing right? Am I trying to help the right person? Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 15, we read those verses. Is my timing right? Speaking the truth in love, okay? Are my words, and you can add to this, okay? Are my words loving? But add this. Are my words, and then put above it, actions, put below it, attitudes, are all of those loving? Because if I'm saying the right words, but I'm not right in my attitude. Marie and when I got married, within the first 6 weeks, we were having a discussion on the couch, and I remember like it was yesterday. I looked at her and I went,
It was 4 o'clock Friday afternoon.
I can't remember what day it was. I just remember it was at night, and I rolled my eyes at her. And she was on the other side of the couch, and she came right over to me, cupped my face in her hands and said, "Don't ever do that again. I grew up with that, and I am not going to be married to it." And I said, "Do what?" And she said, "Roll your eyes at me." I said, "Okay." So she took her hands off, and we started talking. Anytime I want to get at her, I goes, and she's just...
But she said it in love with a good attitude.
I'm just saying that something that matters to her has to matter to me. And I wasn't intending it to, I was not saying what had been said to her by the rolling of the eyes. But having grown up with that, the rolling of an eyes meant something, so I do the rolling of the eyes, meaning maybe something different. Doesn't matter, I don't do it. Unless you want to get fun. It's fun, you know. And now it's not fun anymore because he goes, I know what you're doing. But we have to be careful that how we talk, what we say, is really from our hearts. And it's really, even when we're trying to deal with problems. And I'm learning, because oftentimes a woman doesn't want you to fix it, guys. They just want you to listen. And it would be advise us to ask that question. Do you want me to give advice or to make a solution, fix this, or do you just want me to listen? And oftentimes it's just listen. Just listen. And do that. Don't have her say, just listen, and then try to fix it. It's the listening that fixes it for her. Oftentimes, there are others that are differently with that. And this is all, I'm learning all this, you know, so get that.
What happens at the end of that conversation when she says, "I just want you to listen," and you listen, but you've got a solution that is right there.
Love you very much, honey.
There.
Love you very much. Let me know.
She's going down a different road.
And you say, "Love you very much. Let me know if you ever want some of my advice on it," and be done, because she may not be ready for it, and that's okay. It's something that you gotta. It's like our kids, you know. It's like our children. You gotta let them hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta let them make the mistakes, and you're just going, oh. But they can teach us something too. My youngest is a really good teacher of Daddy. She taught me that, not meaning to, but she taught me that I condescend to her. I hope I don't do it to other people, but I condescend to her. Simply, we were in discussion. We disagreed with something. And I said, "Honey, you don't get this yet because that is so condescending." What is condescending? That you're 18 and I'm 60? No, that you would bring that up. Okay. So what am I trying to say with that? I'm trying to instruct her. There are some things that at 60 years you get that you don't get at 18, right? Well, does she want to hear that? No.
But is that a lack of wisdom on her part?
Sure it is. Sure it is.
And is that
So
pride
if
on
I
her part?
bring that up, I'm only hurting myself. So I find another way to say what needs to be said. I don't say, yeah, keep bringing up, because I know how she feels on that because she's the youngest. And like I said on Sunday, I never was able to, "Hey, come and let me show you this," because I was always taken and shown. Never got to do that. And that's the desire for the youngest one. I watch it with when my 5 kids get around the table and they're all talking and they're all blah, 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 blah. I watch my youngest. She desires to be able to be an equal with all of them. But she's never going to be, because she's always 10 years younger than the oldest. And that's part of me learning that. And that happens later, because now I'm in the opposite end. I'm 60, and then I've got a brother that is 61 and a half. I got a sister that's 63, and another sister 65, and another one that's 67. And now comes the time where they say, "Well, let me ask you a question." And they will never know how much that means. That you would ask the youngest, because I'm always the youngest. You know? but so I have to learn that as far as my daughter is concerned. So your pastor is going through a lot of lessons. I'm learning a lot of. I'm a slow learner, but hopefully I'll live longer, so it'll be okay. You know, if you're a slow learner and you're going to die young, that's hard. Okay, all right. So is my timing right? Are my words loving? The last one here is, have I prayed for God's help? Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Have I prayed for God's help? Okay. Now it's cold in here, isn't it?
Are you still good?
Good.
That was good before.
I love you guys. That was good before.
If you don't see me fainting, I'm okay.
Okay, number 3. Verses 29 and 30, and I think we can probably swing this tonight. Let no corrupt communication, or corrupt word, proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for edification, necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. This is the third one, impart grace. Avoid unwholesome words. Avoid unwholesome words. Corrupt communication. Avoid those. Words that attack a person's worth. Now, this is going to be important, what I'm going to go through. Name calling. See that all the time. Okay. Put down, set apart, or hinders growth. Okay. These words clouds or passes the issue. It clouds or bypasses the issue. Okay. Are these coming up? Yes. These words cloud or by. Is that thunder?
Well,
Wow. And the final one with that is that it grieves the Holy Spirit. Ephesians 4:30. I was at a basketball game. I was horrified at what was going on. I had no authority. I couldn't say anything. I didn't know the individual. But his son was playing basketball, and in front of everybody, and it happened every week from what I found out later, in front of everybody, right in the middle of the game, he starts screaming at his boy because he missed a shot. He wasn't playing defense, right? Screaming at the game is going on, to the intent where the referee had to stop the game, come over to the dad and say, be quiet or get out. And this guy was part of our church. He didn't know it. It just happened. I found this out later. But that boy grew up, didn't want anything to do with his dad. It grieves. So you got to avoid the unwholesome words. And that may mean that you quiet down and not say, okay, I'm getting too hot. And the husband and the wife need to be able to call each other and make the statement. Hey, this is what, when Maria will say, this is why I don't like to discuss things with you, because it gets to the argument. I gotta get to this point. Okay, and that's hard. And so I've got to learn in my relationship with her that as I proceed through a discussion, that it stays nice and calm. It's okay. Is it going to kill us tomorrow? No, it's not going. Is this going to be something where somebody's going to die? No, it's not going to. Somebody's going to die. Is somebody going to commit? No, it's not that. So take it easy. We'll fight and we'll work through this. It's not a big issue. My father-in-law used to say, it's a good day when your wife doesn't die. Because he lost his wife when he was young. And once you go through that, everything else kind of like is in priority. I mean, oh, this is really, really bad. Did your wife die? No. Okay, then we're good. We'll get through this. You see what I'm saying? That's what's happened, by the way, with his church, with what's happened with Brody. Brody's life and now his death has affected immensely this church. As a pastor, elders, we've talked about this. Unbelievable. All petty stuff is kind of like, why are we upset? That matters not. Okay, now you don't want to stuff stuff, but at the same time, it brings it into priority. That doesn't matter. Talk about how I would just like to have Brody come run down that hall right here. Hi, Pastor! And just what a kid, and that's never going to happen. So you know something, when I saw Braden today, I gave him a big hug, and how you doing, guy? Talked with him. It affects us. So, all right, use edifying words, the next one. Use edifying communication, strengthens or builds up. 2 ways we must speak the truth. And 4:15, it talks about speak the truth in love, and also it says speak the truth so that you promote growth. All right, words that edify give grace or desire, ability to do God's will to those who hear. See, one of the things, when I got married, I was used to a family that just argued. We went at it. Imagine this. We'd have family meals, okay? 5 of the guys around the table. When you have all our families together, we had 10 families. 5 of the guys that are on the table, by the time I got around, it was 8 families. 5 of the guys were pastors. Now, they get in discussion. And then my dad is a doctor who's gone to seminary. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to argue on theology? Oh, man, they went at it. We're talking major stuff. And I was used to that. And when it was all over, everybody loved each other and said, okay, that's great. And they disagree with you. Yeah, sure, really lousy on that one, you know. Well, I got into marriage with Maria, and it's just, no, I don't do that. I do not argue like that. Because when I argue, I get intense. There is absolutely no way that you can get that. What are you talking about? That makes no sense. Okay? Didn't do that. Okay? And I promised her when I got married that I would never yell at her. And I've kept that. Really have not ever yelled at her. But intense arguments, yeah. And she let me know early on. My wife just let me have it. First couple of years was so good for me. You know, hey, we're not doing that in this wedding, okay, or this marriage. We're not doing. So we don't argue like that, because she wasn't used to that. In their family, they didn't argue. Now there's negatives on her side of the family too in that setting, because her dad would put up with things and 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 then explode. Everybody would walk on eggshells for about 2 weeks and everything was back to normal. That was the mantra, okay? But when she married me, I talked about every little stinking thing. I mean, it's just, okay, and she goes, you talk about everything. And I said, well, if we will deal with the small issues, then we'll never have a big one, and I will never explode over it. But we got to deal with the small issues. So that's what our mantra has been. You deal with the small issues. So every person has to go through that, and everybody has to work through that, but it has to be something that's edifying. I have to check myself. Are you trying to prove something by this? You get in danger. If you're trying to prove something by you, be careful. If you want to come to a conclusion with me, it's a different story. You get what I'm saying? And this happens with me and the elders, because the elders have to work together in that. You can't have the pastor saying, okay, it's plurality of elders, and not expect for them to say, yeah, I disagree with you. They got to have the freedom to look at me and say, I disagree with you on that. Okay. We have a situation right now, not in our church, where somebody is at our church, coming to our church now, because the pastor said he wanted feedback, and he gave him feedback, and hey, you went against me on that. Yeah, because you asked for feedback. I can't have you disagreeing with me. You know? So my elders have got to, and I say my elders, they could say my elders too, but the elders of the church have got to feel like I can say something and disagree with the pastor on it and not feel like somehow it's going to, blow up or whatever. Or you don't have a viable plurality of elders. You don't. You just have a guy who's doing this, and you got yes men around him. So, what's nice about our situation is that, Ron and I, our relationship is too old for him not to say what he wants to say to me. And Greg knew me when I was his junior high teacher, so he knows all that bad side about me. So he has no problem saying, dude, okay? So, but I know in a relationship, they got my back. I'm good. So there's and that's important in a relationship too. So anyway, that's so edifying communicates strength and builds up. 2 ways we must speak the truth in love. edifying grace. Words that zero in on the problems, okay? Zero in on the problem are solution-oriented, okay? It can be violated. This, what I'm talking about here, imparting grace, can be violated. I do this all the stinking time, all right? I can violate it by tones and body language. You know me, and I get intense about something I believe. You see it in the preaching. In my preaching. No, you cannot sit in my church when I'm preaching without you listening. You will listen, okay? That's what's in my heart. Why? Because I got people going, no, you can't do that. Now, I can't say that, but whenever, you guys know, whenever I'm going to one side or the other and I'm going, okay, now, all right, now get what I'm saying, all right? There's somebody over here that I want their attention, all right? Okay?
Are you listening to me now?
Are you getting this? Are you getting? You guys know me too well. Now you know why I'm doing that. And so what you guys are going to be doing? Who is it? Who's over there? Who's asleep? You know. but so that's good in one arena, but it can really be bad news in another arena when I'm not preaching, but I'm trying to solve a problem in my family. And I think that's why my boys are as they are. I mean, and you look at your kids after you know, they know how to deal with their dad. They kind of are quiet and ask questions and check me by my questions. So what happens with this, Dad? And now I'm going, okay, gotta get an answer, you know. And then they go, see ya, I gotta go. And so that's a statement of saying, you don't have to have the answer right now, just think about this, Dad. So my kids are becoming experts on how to deal with Dad, okay? Which I love because there's an aspect there where, you know, and I look at what you guys are all going through, and the kids that you're working through, and the husband and the wife that you're dealing with. You know, you're in a family where you're a mate, and your kid, they love you. I mean, I have 5 kids. None of them want me to fail. And then they're always calling Greg. They're always calling me, going, "So how did Sunday go?" I mean, all 5 kids. How did Sunday go? Why? Because they watched something implode. And I watch your kids with you. I watch your mate with you. They want you to be successful. Your friends want you to be successful. That's the response of love. And that's the foundation that we go through. So the application here, and I want you to write this down. I think if you've got this, write this one down. Attack the problem, not the person. Attack the problem, not the person. And you can get into a discussion with one another where the person is frustrating you because they're not getting it or they're not agreeing with you. And what are you doing? You know, it's really interesting when I'm talking to certain individuals. If I don't agree with them, I haven't listened to them. That's their mindset. So I can listen and I can hear everything and say, well, you're not listening to me. So the question oftentimes I come in and I say, okay, can I understand you and then disagree with you? Is that a possibility in this discussion? Because if it's not, then why are we discussing it? Because I just have to agree with you and everything will be fine. No, there's got to be an aspect of understanding the person and being able to say, love you very much, but disagree. Okay? So remember to attack the problem. That's a big one. Attack the problem, not the person. You see anybody that's attacking the person, got a weak argument. By the way, you'll see that in politics. When a person can't handle the argument of the other person, they start coming after the person. Well, you're just a jerk and you don't know anything about this and you don't know anything. All right, you can't handle the argument? So attack the problem, not the person. Okay, the last one and we're done. Okay. This one I love. Overlook in order to understand. Overlook in order to understand. 31. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. Okay? And be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as Christ in God forgave you. Question. What kind of people did Jesus say to on the cross, Father, forgive them? Yeah. Who was he specifically talking to? His mother? No. His disciples? No. Who's he talking to? Yeah. The Pharisee, and this is in the Passion of Christ. It's very well presented on this. The high priest is walking away from Jesus, and he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. That is crazy. He's overlooking issues and situations in order to understand. So I've gotten written in there, oftentimes someone sends barbs or harsh words, which are usually embedded in sinful actions or attitudes. In order to communicate, you will need to overlook those. There are people that I know, men are really, really good with this. I will say, women, I love you, but this is a tough one for you. Men are really good. They're in business. In business, they're all bottom liners. And they can go at each other and they kind of just overlook it and move on. They put on their big pants and they go on. Woman, it's hard. It's very difficult for a woman to have some difficult things said to them and not be offended by it. Overlook does not mean that we don't care about the verbal abuse. It simply means that we will not take offense at their sin right now. Is that in your notes? Is that okay? So that's important. So I'm overlooking what is presently going on so that I can understand the situation of what's happening. Wow. I didn't know we had that. So let's go. Keep going. Overlook reactions, attitudes, actions that are attacking. We can go through these. So this is, define this here. Bitterness. The refusal to treat someone as if they never hurt you. The refusal to treat someone as if they had never hurt you. That's bitterness. I will remember what you've done. So that's the first one. Definitions. Because this is just right out of the text. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger. So you can put all those words on there. They're right in the text. Okay. The second one is wrath. That's flaring out of anger. These are the words that are, this is what the Greek word means. Wrath is the flaring out of anger. Anger is the settled indignation or hostility that frequently seeks revenge, the slow burn. That's anger, the slow burn. Next one is clamor, harsh contention and strife, public quarreling, brawling. Next one is slander, speech that injures, abusive speech. And the last one is malice, the desire to harm others and to see them suffer. And he escalates with this. But I know people like that. They say things or they talk about things, they give reactions, and they really want to hurt the other person and have them suffer. The natural tendency of our Genesis 3 nature is to be defensive about dealing with our own sin. You can find that in Genesis 3:18-30. That's our natural tendency, and we've got to fight against that. So letter B there is actions. Attitudes and actions to put on to replace these actions. He gives in the next verse, which is kind, okay? That's benevolent, helpful, and courteous. Write this out to the right of this. Nothing justifies unkindness. Nothing justifies unkindness. Even if you're rebuking, even if you're dealing with major sin, nothing justifies unkindness. So you can always, always be kind. Always be kind. The next one is tenderheartedness. That's the lesson my dad just blasted into my head. He didn't care about anything with me more than the phrase, son, don't lose your tender heart. That's what he would say over and over and over and over again. Don't lose your tender heart. Don't lose your tender heart. It's literally of good-heartedness, compassionate and sympathetic. And you know what's interesting? The thing that tempted losing that tender heart more than anything else was my dad. Because he divorced my mom and justified it and then remarried. That was hard to swallow. I was angry and mad. And the third one there is, oops. Not that one. Forgiving. Forgiving. And we'll have a whole lesson on forgiving because we got to teach our church about how to be good at forgiving. to give up the right or claim to revenge, hold grudge, or even note. Next one, quickly go into this one. Arguments are possible only if people react. Starting a quarrel is like letting out of water. Stop it before strife breaks out. Proverbs 29:20. Do you see someone who is hasty in his words? Oh, this word. I have this verse underlined, highlighted, quartered off. Do you see someone hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him. All right? So the application here is act, don't react. Act, don't react. So the conclusion, and this is big, changing habits is not easy, but it can be done. What I said on Sunday morning, I got attention from the majority of the men who were there that were new when I made the statements. You can change habits and you can stop addictive behavior. Because that's what a man doesn't think can happen. When you talk about change, most of your men say, nah, that ain't happening. That's not going to happen. But you tell them the resurrection power of Jesus Christ gives the ability to change. That's intriguing. That's really intriguing. We had a lot of brand new people, church on Sunday. And a lot of them were just listening. But changing habits is not easy, but it can be done in the final one here. Regardless of the other person, you must act biblically. And that's key. That's everything. Regardless of the other person, you must act biblically. Okay? Now we went over a lot really, really fast. Anything that you guys have questions about? Anything? Okay. Pray for me when you think about it this week. By Friday or by next Friday, one of the two, I have to send in the dissertation completely finished. 2 copies of it. And then it's done. The 2 copies become books into the library. Every doctorate that they've ever had over there has a book in their big library. And so it goes into that. But I've just got to finish writing about recommendations for how to have biblical soul care in established churches. And that's a tough one. It's easy. Like when you come here and you first came here, okay, we got life groups. And you go, okay, what's life groups? Okay, we're starting church. Okay, get that. You go to a place that says, we haven't done that. Yeah, we don't do life groups. But you know where I would say where 70% of the work is done in this church for godliness and growth? It's in the life group. It really is. I see what I watched Anderson's life group just mature through that whole thing. And Ellison, I just found out, Sylvia's dad is dying. I went over there to see them today. Ron had been over there. I mean, I'm sitting there talking to Alan, and Ron comes by. I never asked Ron to go by. I never asked Greg and Fonnie to do it. It's in them, and they're ministering to the people in their life. That's the biblical soul care going on. And so I'm really, really thankful for what God's doing in this church. Amen? Doesn't it sound any fun? I think it was really, really enjoyable. In fact, we had like 220 here, and Dan Hartway, I guess they came late. I had to get them a chair. He just laughed at me right away. I was really good. It wasn't ADD on Sunday, because I was just going to say, hey, Dan, how you like the seats, bud? So, let's close in prayer. Greg, would you pray for us?
Sure. Father, thank you again for this evening, for a time to reflect and a time to understand your word and how it applies in counseling. Lord, I pray that you be with each one here. I pray that you would impart to them knowledge. I pray that you would empower them and build them up to use them in a mighty way for whatever is going to come our way. And God, that's what we need as the preparation. We need to study. We need to know what you want us to do. So again, thank you for our time together. I pray that you bless it. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay.